Hello and welcome back to In Conclusion, We Have No Idea. I'm Camille.
I'm Liz. And we still have no idea. Ever.
No, we do not. But if we did have, that would ruin the podcast, because then we'd have an idea. And people who have thoughts don't have podcasts.
People who have thoughts don't have fear. I haven't felt things since 2000, the day I was born.
That was it. That was the last time. After that, it was like, okay, we're done.
Error, and then just like immediately.
Yep.
No feelings. Just kidding. I'm not gonna be edgy. I'll leave that to middle school.
Somehow I'm edgier now than I was in middle school, and I don't know what happened.
Camille, it's just because you got spiteful after high school.
Yeah, that's right, I forgot. Anyways.
It was fun watching you become very spiteful after high school, though, because I felt like I had a hand in that.
Yeah. High school was just... all we talk about is high school, but that's because high school was very developmental for us. Like...
well, it's where we met each other, and where we bonded, and where we have most of our trauma associated.
Yeah.
So, I mean... and let's be real, like, we have, like, things with college, like, I have so many things about college that I would talk about, but I feel like this is more of, like, a, step-by-step process explaining why we are the way we are.
Eventually we'll get up to college. At that point I'm going...
yeah, eventually I'll be able to talk about all of my adventures, riding public transit for 2 years.
Yeah, eventually...
hate that.
Yeah, we'll get to that point. At that point, I may have, like, a husband and 2 kids, and then I'll have other things to talk about.
I'll have, like, myself and, like, a dog, maybe.
You know? We all got something.
Some people have more than others. It's fine, you know? It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Sometimes people get
I'll be okay.
something you really, really want, and you just have to deal with that for the rest of your life.
You know, I feel like I'm gonna have to deal with it for a lot longer, though, because based on who I am as a person, it will definitely be a very long time before someone's like, want to deal with that for a long time.
I mean...
which is fair. I've been dealing with myself my entire life, and, like...
I mean, I thought that...
nobody hates me more than me.
I thought that too. I was like, no one's going to love me. I'm far too weird. And now my boyfriend's dating me. He's like, I love you because you're weird. I'm like, huh? What?
See, it's not that. It's more like, you know, like, there's a lot of people who are like, oh man, I hate Liz, she's so annoying. I'm like, you know what? If you think I'm annoying in the minimal amount of time you have to deal with me, imagine what it's like to be me. I can't get rid of myself. I have to deal with me all the time.
I like you, Liz. I mean...
pity me is what I'm saying, because I have to deal with myself more than anybody else does.
Oh, I do pity you. I pity
Thank you.
everyone. I'm just a pity machine.
That is... thank you, Camille.
You're welcome. Anyways, back to high school. Last week we kind of dipped our toes in the theater department. We talked about how we did center stage, and if you haven't listened to that, you probably should, because it's pretty dang entertaining if I do say so myself. But that's not the only...
I feel it explains, like, a lot of how we feel about the theater department as
a whole. Yeah, it's like the good,
it's
the
really
bad,
like...
and the ugly. It's all of it.
It's really like a very, like, concentrated version of the theater department and everything that happens with it and what can and will possibly go wrong.
And, yeah, so everything from here on out that we do about theater department is just like, it's an elaboration. It's like, anyways, here's more on this. But we did do lots of shows in high school, and most of them were really, really good, actually. Like, a little shocking.
Are you saying you participated in them or me? Because I selected which shows I wanted to be in.
I mean,
and I didn't audition for any musicals, period, because I can't dance. I can't sing. I can barely, like, walk in a straight line most of the time.
see, I didn't necessarily... See, I really like being in musicals, even though I'm not, like star of the musical quality. I do think that if I'm going to be star of anything, it's going to be a play, which is why the fact that I never got cast in a play was extremely disappointing, because I was like, this is like the area where I can shine. And then, I got cast as like townsperson number 7 in every musical. The reason I auditioned...
I feel like the problem with that is that our theater department was so competitive.
Yes.
That, like, you could audition and get townsperson number 7, and, like, there's still, like, townsperson number 20, right? Like, number 7 compared to, like, the size of the cast isn't that bad. Let's be real.
I'm pretty sure they listed the ensemble in alphabetical order by first name. Okay, fine. But
it's fine.
I do distinctly remember auditioning for everything with, like, this false delusion that if I kept on auditioning and working my rear end off, eventually I'd get a lead. And it never happened. It was like the first 8 minutes of Up, okay? That's how depressing this was. It was like, I was doing everything right, and still nothing. But
I just had to be realistic with myself. Like, to be honest, I was not as invested in theater as other people. Like, it was more of like this is fun. I like doing this. This was entertaining for me. Like, haha, I'm having fun. I have friends for once in my life. Like, I didn't take theater too seriously because it wasn't something that I wanted to do in high school or, like, after high school and in college and stuff. So I mostly just, like, auditioned for what I wanted, didn't get my hopes set, like, super high, but I also, like, didn't do jack shit to work for roles, like, before the show started. Like, once we got cast and everything, like, I did take it seriously that, like, I wouldn't, like, for the most part, I wouldn't fuck around, but, like, let's be real, it's theater, we all, like, we all screw around and do dumb shit backstage and whatever. Like, that's different than, like, I, memorize lines and stuff. And so it's like, work ethic wise, like, I still got things done that I needed to, but, like, I also wouldn't, like, shoot super high because it wasn't something that I was, like, really, really, like, emotionally invested in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And see, I did not have that attitude, and it really shows when you find out that I wholeheartedly and with all the hope and optimism that a 17-year-old could have auditioned for A Midsummer Night's Dream, but Western.
Why is it a Western? Why was it a Western? That's my question. Like, I don't hate A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's, like, one of my, not, like, top favorite Shakespeare shows, but it's, like, I don't dislike it. I don't hate it. I don't even, like, feel ambivalent. But why was it Western?
See, I don't know.
I don't get.
Yeah. It was weird to me because Midsummer Night's Dream is one of those shows. There are lots of Shakespeare shows that you can really kind of do whatever with, because one, the bard is dead. He's not here to tell you no. And two, all of his works are, like, pretty simple, actually. So you can set it kind of wherever, and that's where we get, like, modern Shakespeare, or, like, just, like, yeah,
well, the thing is, I think you can set Midsummer in different kind of settings, but, like, within reason. Like, I saw a version down at one of the festivals. It was, like, a 1920s, like, Art Deco kind of Midsummer, and it was really, really good.
Yeah.
It wasn't confusing or anything. Like they did it really well. But this was just why. Like I've seen Comedy of Errors done as a Western, and I really, really liked that show. It was like one of my favorite productions I've ever seen of a Shakespeare comedy ever was a Western Comedy of Errors, but like a Midsummer.
Thing is,
It was just bad.
Midsummer has a vibe. You can set Midsummer in other settings, but it needs to still have that fantasy sort of vibe to it. And a Western just doesn't have a fantasy vibe to it, which is why a Western works great for, like, comedies, like, that are, like, the early farces, I want to say. Like, Shakespeare's super chaotic plays. That works well for a Western, because Westerns are often pretty chaotic. So it makes sense to set the chaotic plays in a Western. And Midsummer, it's chaotic, but it's like not Western chaotic.
It's not like, yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, it's like a fantasy sort of chaotic instead of just like a human chaotic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's mistaken identities and like, you know, someone's in one place where you think they're in another, but they're actually over there, and it's just that kind of chaotic versus like fantasy chaotic. So I mean, I get what you're saying, but it just, I don't know. Some things, I'll admit, some things worked, some things didn't. Most things were just kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't, no, that's not, I don't like that.
And I remember she actually brought up that she was going to do this while we were working on another Shakespeare scene for high school Shakespeare.
So the competition scene?
Yeah, for Taming of the Shrew, which she set steampunk, which worked for Taming of the Shrew. It worked.
Yeah, I mean, it worked.
But
exaggeration of emotions and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in the scene we did, it worked, so.
Yeah, and we'll probably talk about that scene some other day, but she brought it up. She was like, I'm going to do not Taming of the Shrew, I'm going to do Midsummer Night's Dream as a Western. And I remember, even me, who was fairly optimistic about all things theatrical, was like, huh? And it was really too bad because she was like an amazing theater teacher. Like, she was like the resident therapist for the entire drama department. I took a class.
Yeah.
I took several classes with her my senior year just because she was such a great teacher. And so this.
I had her 2 class periods in a row. That while we were doing Midsummer and everything. So I'd go from having her right before lunch to having her right after lunch to then having her after school as a director for our show. And I'm pretty sure by the end of Midsummer she was like, I don't want to look at you right now. Go away. And I'm like, you know, that's valid. That's valid. But that show was just like an amalgamation of just so many things wrong. And just, it was not, I don't know, because there were parts of that show that I really enjoyed and I thought were well casted, and I was like, oh, this isn't that bad. But then there were other parts of the show that I was like, why? But why?
Yeah.
Like, excuse me, ma'am. Why?
It kind of had like just doomed to failure vibes right from the get-go, like with casting. I remember I was so desperate to play Helena. She is one of my dream roles. I was like, I don't care if it's a Western, I want to play Helena. And I feel like I'm kind of a Helena figure. Helena kind of has this like done with everything attitude, but also still very hopeful, which is a very weird combination, but it's how I live my life. And she just, yeah. So I went home when I found out, well, I already knew, but a few days before the audition, I read the entirety of Midsummer Night's Dream, focusing on Helena's parts. I had the roles almost memorized by the time it was time for the auditions. So I got up there and I did one of the cold readings, for Helena, and I put my whole gosh dang heart and soul into that. Like, to the point that people were coming up to me after the audition and saying, "That's your part. You're getting the part. That is your part." And I was feeling so good about it. And then she gave it to a really, really flat actress who did not do the role justice. And honestly, I know it's been a lot of years, and I should really just get over it, but I'm still a little bitter about it.
See, I walked into that audition generally just not giving a shit about whatever role I got. I just did it because I had to mark off that I auditioned for something that quarter. I was like, whatever. And our friend Caitlin did the exact same thing because the director was like, "Caitlin, are you gonna audition?" And Caitlin was like, "No, I don't really want to. Like, I don't really want. Like, she's like, I don't really want to be in the show. But if your director asks you to audition, you're like, you're getting the role, like a role. Like, they don't just like
Here's the thing.
ask people specifically to audition for something if they don't already want you to be in the show. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and that's what we like to call, "Oh, this show's been pre-cast. Thank you for..." But here's the thing. From the way I understood it, and I could be completely wrong about this, but she told me, because she came to me like super upset after this whole thing went down. She didn't even audition. Her name was just on the cast list. And she went into the director and was,
no, Caitlin auditioned.
I didn't
because
see the auditions. Did she audition?
Well, she was with me, and we were one of the last people to audition.
Okay, that's probably why.
I didn't want to be there. Caitlin didn't want to be there, and so we were just kind of like, she was hanging around because Caitlin was in the drama presidency, so she had to like kind of help run things, you know. And I was there because I was like, I don't really want to audition, but like whatever. And so our director came up to me and she was like, "Liz, do you have a partner that you're gonna do like a cold read with?" And I was like, "No." I was like, I'll just go bug one of our other friends to have him like do another, because like sometimes they would have like someone audition twice if like someone else needed help like doing a cold read. Like, they're not really auditioning, they're just helping them like do their reading. And McGuire, our director, was like, "So, Caitlin, do you want to audition?" And Caitlin was like, "No, like, but I'll read with Liz." So, but our director had her fill out like an audition sheet and everything, and so Caitlin ended up being in a group with me and our other friend, who was a really nice dude, and then another guy that we had known in theater, who, the four of us together, like, we were so done. None of us really wanted to like be in the roles that we were. We were just kind of there because we were asked to audition, or like we just kind of blasé, like we're like, whatever, I don't really like want to do this show, but like it's the last show of senior year. Like, you audition for it, you're like, "Oh, I'll just be like a townsperson," but then you like get casted not like a lead, but like a role that has lines and stuff, so you like have to be at auditions every day. So it's like the four of us together spent most of our time backstage just like messing around. There were times where like Caitlin and one of the other guys would like go down a map and like get food during rehearsal. Well, I think one time it happened during a show too.
She told me that.
She told me that we like left.
Yeah.
And got food and then came back.
And it's
like
because
while the show was going on.
You guys were only at the very beginning and the very end. You literally had like an hour and a half plus of just nothing.
Realistically, we probably could have gone to like a sit-down restaurant and like had a nice meal while the show was going on, and then went back in time for everything to happen. But it was really interesting because we were all just like so done and like so didn't want to be there. But like, I mean, we still had fun, just confused as to why it was a Western. And I had to wear a big poofy purple skirt, and I was not pleased about that. Like, I had to stop. Okay, here's the thing. So I had a hat that I wore in that show, right? It had like this weird like flower thing on it. I hated it, but it was too big for my head, or like too tall for, because I had like a bun that I had to wear with it, and so I had to stuff paper towels into the top of that hat just so I could wear it.
We love theater.
That sucked.
All that.
And then underneath this big purple skirt that I was wearing on stage, I'd wear cowboy boots. So like those are like thigh-high cowboy boots and this big skirt, and I was like, I am not changing because I didn't know what to wear underneath it. Nobody said what to wear underneath it. I wore sweatpants. I wore like black sweatpants underneath this big skirt and in these cowboy boots. No one said anything to me. No one noticed. No one was like, Liz, are you wearing sweatpants? Like, I guarantee had I even pulled up the skirt up to like my knee, someone would have been like, are those fucking sweatpants that she's wearing? It was. It was just theater costuming in high school.
Yeah.
The costumers tried their best, but
they really did. I was tiny in high school, so they would kind of just, pretty much every costume I wore in any show ever had to be pinned in various locations, and the poor costumers, bless their hearts, they were really doing their best.
Yeah, they really, it was, I mean, I had to like get like an elastic band for the skirt that I was wearing. My costume honestly wasn't like as bad compared to others, and I wore the same thing the entire show. Like, I didn't have like a costume change or anything, which was nice because I'm lazy and I didn't want to do a costume change. But, like, it wouldn't have mattered anyways because, like you said, I was at the very beginning of the show, got on stage, did my little rant, marched off stage, and then wasn't in the show for another like hour and a half. Like, yeah. And then once I was in the show, I didn't have any more lines really. Like, I had a little monologue in like the fourth act, like a couple more lines, and then I didn't say anything in the fifth act, which was the only good act of that show, I might add.
I'm not gonna lie, I would have paid money just to watch the fifth act and nothing else. Like,
the fifth act was the only reason that I don't absolutely hate that show. I would not have cared about the show at all, except for the fifth act was like genuinely like actually pretty funny. Like, I broke on stage multiple times because I was like, every night. So it was the part of Midsummer where they have the play within a play, but it's Paramus and Thisbe, and the actor who was playing flute, who plays Thisbe in the show, every fucking night he would do something.
When he died.
And I just could not handle it. Like, every fucking night he would do something different, like wave to his mom, or like walk down in front of the stage, or rip off my hat, or like have his wig fall off and then force everybody to put it back on, and then it just, like, he would be dying for like 5 minutes, and I just like lost it every night. I was like, I cannot do this.
That little performance of his leads me to believe that by the end of that show, people truly did not care what the audience thought of the show. They were just like, screw it, we're miserable, we're confused, we're just...
Oh no, for sure. Like, that whole show, the fifth act was such just like, we would just do whatever. Like, okay, so the guy who played Philistine, who was in the group with me, because I played the gender bent version of Aegis, who is Hermia's parent, in the like actual like written script, but I changed it to mother because I guess for some reason I give off an aggressive authoritarian vibe, which, like, whatever. Like,
I get into that.
I don't even need to like deal with that at this point. Like, I think it was mostly because of my audition where I was just like so not wanting to be there that our director was like, yeah, this is is the vibe I'm going for. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But he and I, the guy who played Philostrate, we sat next to each other while the show was going on, like the play within the play was going on. And every night we would switch hats at the very end, because he had like an actual like real cowboy hat. Mine wasn't like a cowboy hat. It was like a kind of like a top hat, but like had like flowers or whatever on it, and like a little tool train off of it at one point. And so we would switch hats every night to see who would notice. And we never got yelled at for it, so I don't think our director noticed us doing it. Like, when everybody was supposed to leave, we would get up, switch hats, and then we did that one night. Caitlin, at one point, I think at the beginning of our middle school matinee, was like sneezing on stage. So she would like sneeze, or hop off stage, sneeze, jump back on stage, like say a line, hop back off stage and sneeze, and then jump back on stage. That show was so chaotic, but not in like the way that it was meant to be chaotic.
Chaotic for the wrong reasons.
Chaotic for the sake of nobody knew or cared what they were doing.
Yeah.
Like, at the very end of the show, we had this like bar, like setups, like, so there was tables and stuff, and we had like a saloon door. It was a saloon that we had. So we had the saloon doors, but on the back of the saloon doors, you couldn't see, there was these big, like, thick 2x4. They were heavy, and they were meant to make it so that the bar doors would like automatically close. And so they were weighted, so they would, after you would open them, you'd let go and they would automatically close. That was what they were for. The problem was, like, if someone opened them in front of you, you had to make sure to put your hands out to catch them so that you wouldn't get whacked in the face by these giant 2x4s, like, slamming into your face. Well, the problem was, so our friend Caitlin and the other guy in the group of 4 that I was in, we were all supposed to walk in together, but basically what's supposed to happen is the guy who played the Duke was supposed to, like, hold the door open for just enough that Caitlin and I could sneak in behind him, and I would, like, go march off onto wherever my table was, and Caitlin would stand up and talk to the Duke, because she was what was the character's name that was supposed to marry the Duke? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
But as soon as the Duke walked in, he didn't keep his hand on the saloon doors long enough, and so I was the like second person behind him after Caitlin, and Caitlin managed to squeeze in just as the saloon doors slammed back into my face and knocked me backwards off of the set. And so, like, everyone started, like, in the audience just kind of, like, gasped a little bit, and I, like, slammed open the saloon doors, and Caitlin was, like, trying not to, like, bust up laughing. She mouthed to me, she's like, "Are you okay?" And I gave her, like, the most intense, like, I don't want to fucking talk about it right now stare in the whole world. And everyone thought that was so funny. They were like, "Oh, ha, ha." But I was, like, pissed off because I got smacked in the face by these, like, giant saloon doors. It hurt. Like, I almost fell and, like, it was so much of a disaster. It was so much. I, like, can't even think about it without being like, why did I audition for this show? But, like, why? I don't know what it was like to see it from an audience perspective, though, so, you know.
It was real interesting. I only saw it once, and like you said, the only entertaining part was Act 5. I kind of was just there. I went with a couple of friends, and periodically throughout the show, we'd all kind of just, like, look at each other like, what the heck is going on? And just, we were like, this is weird. Someone was, instead of having fairies, you guys had, like, little animal spirits, and
I don't even want to get into like the kind of a little bit racist undertones of that show.
Yeah, and there was a girl dressed as a lizard, but it wasn't even like a good. It was like a Party City lizard.
It was like a Party City dinosaur costume. It was bad.
I'm like sitting there. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, just like throughout the entire show, I was just like, what's going on? And then there were a couple of casting decisions that I did not care for. We've already gone into the girl who was cast as Helena, so every time she was on stage, part of me was just kind of sitting there seething like, that should be me. Also, side note with that, at the end of your drama banquet, the director got up and talked about how she was like, so this girl auditioned for the play her sophomore year, and I remember thinking, if I get a chance to direct Midsummer when she's a senior, I'm gonna make her Helena. And that girl was girl who played Helena this year. And I'm like, and I remember, like, Caitlin was like, I was genuinely worried that you were going to stand up right there and fight someone, Camille. I'm not going to lie. You were, like, quaking. And I was like, she literally...
I didn't even go to the drama banquet. I did not know that.
Like, I'm like, she genuinely precast someone who wasn't even a good actor 2 years in advance. So it literally did not matter that I poured out my heart and soul into that audition, because I doubt she even paid attention. So I was very upset about that. I still am, honestly, like, if you can't tell.
I think I get that feeling.
Yeah, but then she also cast this one guy, and Caitlin told me all these stories. He played Nick Bottom, and he...
I know exactly what you're talking about. I hate him.
He was in my theater class, and after he got that role, he was so cocky. He was like, I got the lead role in Midsummer Night's Dream. Obviously.
Not even the lead role that you would want to be proud of getting.
That's like,
you know?
Yeah. And Caitlin was like, she told me one time he tried to give her acting tips backstage. He had never been in a play before. This was the first time he'd ever been in a play. And he was trying to give Caitlin acting tips, and Caitlin's standing there like, I've literally been acting since I was 3. I think I know what I'm doing. And
well, he was just an arrogant prick, and also like a fucking creep. Like, he was a creep. And the highlight of that show for me personally, like as an individual, not even like a character moment, I like could not care less about my character or whatever, was the fact that I got to stab him at the end of the show. And that was like the most cathartic thing in the world, because this guy was backstage in the drama room drawing swastikas on the whiteboard. This guy was backstage watching a girl do a quick change. Not like being like one of the guys around who's like covering her up or anything. He was watching her. Like, we had to have a conversation at the end of one of our rehearsals basically saying, listen, actresses who are doing a quick change deserve privacy just as much as anybody else. It doesn't matter if they are backstage and there are other people around, they deserve privacy. You don't stare at them. You might accidentally glance over at them, but do not stare at them, you fucking creep. And like, it was just in general to everybody, but like, we knew who it was. And the girl who he was staring at, like, personally, like, I had a lot of issues with, just like as like a friend, and like we had problems before that, but like, it doesn't matter, like, my own personal issues with her. Like, I don't think anybody deserves that kind of creepy, like, predatory behavior directed at them. You know what I mean? Like, he was a fucking creep. He almost got kicked out of the show, actually, for his behavior. He was like one wrong move away from just getting kicked out.
Gosh dang it!
Like, one of the guys in that show was actually reading and studying the lines for that role and had it almost memorized, and basically was like ready to step in and take over, because this other dude was a fucking creep who drew swastikas backstage all over the whiteboard and was just he was awful. And it wasn't even like like 1 or 2 people in the cast hated him. I don't think there was a single person in that cast who was like, yeah, I like him. Like, when we were all trying to go out to, like, dinner after our shows or whatever, because, you know, it's like a theater tradition to do that. Like, after your show, you go out and eat, like, breakfast foods or something. Like, he would try and find a group to go out with, and all of us would be like, no, we're gonna go home, but, like, we would all go out to dinner because nobody liked him. Everybody thought he was a creep, and, like, I don't know. On one hand, it's like it's kind of a dick move to just, like, purposely leave him out, but on the second hand,
he was making a bunch of his own dick moves, apparently. So
yeah, he did nothing to deserve our respect, and he did nothing to make it so that other people enjoyed his presence, and he did nothing to warrant being invited out with people who didn't like him, didn't want him around, and frankly, were just all pissed off that he was there to begin with.
yeah, and I remember this was after the show. We had our like end of cap. Yeah, I know you're already bugged. We had our end of quarter recap assemblies, and they'd always give out like awards to like the star student from like each individual department, like English department and all that. And they got to the arts department, and they announced this guy's name for his performance as Nick Bottom. And I was sitting in a whole row, I think you were there, a whole row of theater kids. And I just looked down that row. I have never seen so many people look so pissed off about the same thing. Like, there were enough of us. We probably could have stormed the stage and, like, been...
You can't stop us all.
You can't, like... We could have, like, each grabbed the mic and been like, you want a list of reasons why he should not? He should...
Well, and the thing is he wasn't even the best actor in the show. By far.
By far.
The guy who played Flute, who was the only reason that Act 5 was good, should have gotten that award. Period.
He should have.
Exclamation point. No. Like, I have never been, like, more furious over someone winning an award in my life. Like, it's not even, like, I genuinely, like, those, end of quarter recap assemblies, like, I didn't give a shit about them at all. But I genuinely don't think this guy deserved recognition for a role that he was not even that good in, for a role that he was a massive problem in the cast, for a role that he almost got kicked out of the show for.
And it makes me wonder how much of a say the director had in that decision. Was it like, I'm really wondering if it's an administrative decision, like if...
It had to have been. There's no way. There wasn't a single one. That was not either an administrative decision or whatever, because it was so infuriating. And to, like, be, like, one of those actors in that show being like, I can list off 10 other people who deserve this award more than he did. Yeah. Based on his behavior in the show, outside of the show, to other cast members, to cast people who are, like, not in the show, to anybody in the drama department, to the fact of his acting skills just flat out. Like, it was just so, like, disrespectful to everybody else who had been in that show to watch this fucking predator creep who nobody liked, who wasn't even that good of an actor, win an award that could have gone to someone else who by far surpassed, was just infinitely superior to his acting and his behavior. You know what I mean? Like, it was so annoying. And, like, the theater department were the only people who really recognized that. Yeah. Because we were all just sitting there like, why? But, like, why? Because we could not for the life of us figure out who would have nominated him for this award. I honestly, in my own mind, cannot think of a single person in that show involved with that show, involved with the theater department, who would have nominated him.
And that's saying something, because the kid who played Puck was like, he loved everyone. So if even he didn't like him, then that was saying something.
he wouldn't say it outright, but like
He was too dang.
you could tell. Because nobody hung around with this kid. Nobody wanted to. Like, he would try and start conversations, and they would be, like, weird, like, kind of, like you said, with Caitlin, trying to give people acting tips who have been acting longer than he has, have more experience acting than he does. Like, nobody wanted to be around him. And that's not even just, like, being, like, a bully at that point. That's not, like, ganging up on him. Like, he isolated himself from everybody else with his behavior.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, and this kid gave me, like, other problems too, because during our middle school matinee, so the guy who played Phyllis Strait and I had a set piece we were supposed to bring on and then leave. And, like, that's kind of, like, our last thing that we do before we're not seen for another hour and a half in the show. So we get the set piece on, and we go back, and we did this, like, 10 seconds flat. Like, this guy and I had been practicing this for a while, so we knew exactly where it needed to go. We knew, like, at what point we needed to put it on the stage and stuff. And so we did it 10 seconds flat, went backstage, and I get this text from our director. Where is the set piece you and Mark are supposed to bring on? And I'm like, we took it on stage. What are you talking about? We put it on stage and then we left. And all of a sudden the guy who plays Phil Strait, comes back in. He's like, furious. I'm like, what's wrong? And he basically tells me that this kid that nobody liked, the same guy who won the award and all of that stuff, had taken our set piece. He had taken our set piece off set. We had been rehearsing this set piece, like moving it on stage, since like basically the beginning of the show. We had been moving it for the entire time by ourselves, just the two of us. That was our assigned piece we were supposed to be moving on. Nobody else was supposed to be touching it. Nobody else was supposed to move it. That was our assigned piece. And this kid takes it off set. For no reason. For no fucking reason. We hadn't been rehearsing that at all. It was like, no. And so I texted the director. I was like, we put it on set. If someone else took it off, that's not our fault. We did our job. So I don't know why I was getting in trouble for doing my job only to have someone fuck it up for me.
Yeah.
You know? I was so mad. And I went up to him after he got backstage, and I like grabbed him by the shirt, and I like told him, I was like, don't you fucking touch that set piece again. I was like, if I see you even anywhere near it, I will have an issue. And I have no problem telling you off, or fucking telling you off to someone else, or making sure that you are nowhere near it ever again. I was like, if you do this one more time, I am going to make it hell. I was so mad. And he looked me in the eyes, and I think he understood at that moment that I was like not kidding. Because it's like, much as I messed around and I screwed around backstage and like I had fun, like there were certain things that like really pissed me off. And like that was like, he hit like the exact thing that I was like, oh, and I was so ready to just beat his ass right there. I was not having a shit.
And you were like, you were pretty dang intimidating in high school, so I really hope that you like, yeah, I hope he felt your wrath.
I have, and this is why it's like riding public transit for me hasn't been as bad as it is for like a lot of other people. I have a really like great skill of resting bitch face that I can turn up to an 11 and then add like fury in my eyes. Like,
nice.
A lot of people say that they were intimidated with me in high school, which is fair. Like, I fully admit, like, I was kind of very aggressive and like kind of really scary. But like, to be honest, sometimes it really worked for my benefit.
This was one of those times.
Well, and so the guy who played Phyllis Strait, like, watched me basically yank this kid by his collar into the drama room and, like, tell him off. And he comes up to me, he's like, so I'm glad that I'm helping you in this situation and not someone who fucked it up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just said what everybody in this cast has been wanting to say for a very long time. I just, like, channeled everybody's rage in that moment.
You were the
Because
bringer.
I was finally, like, I think I had reached the point where, like, I had watched him do all this shit for all of rehearsals, and I was so sick of it, and everyone else was so sick of it, that basically we kind of had made a pact at this point. Like, if he fucks up, no one's gonna just let it slide. Like, we have to call it out, because it's not even just, like, you're being, like, a shitty actor. Like, you're just being a shitty person in general. Like, that's just bad etiquette.
Yeah.
So, I hated this dude so much. And, like, I know that's bad of me to say, because, like, everyone's like, oh, he probably has issues. Like, I'm sorry. Having issues doesn't excuse that kind of behavior.
I
that's not...
I haven't done anything nearly that jerky, so...
I have issues, but, like, I don't want to use my issues as an excuse to justify shitty behavior, especially behavior that A, makes people uncomfortable, B, like, hurts other people, gets other people into trouble, or, like, C, just in general making people feel unsafe.
Yeah. Like,
that's when you do something to correct the behavior instead of just letting it get out of control, which this guy obviously didn't learn anything, because he kept doing shit that would piss people off, and we'd all say, like, dude, stop. And then he wouldn't do that thing, but he would move on to something else. He broke one of my props because he was fucking with it. And that's, like, number one no-no.
Yeah, that's, like...
theater.
Yeah.
Unless you have express permission from the actor or the stage manager to move a prop or touch it in any way, don't fucking touch someone else's prop.
And there's just, like, a whole list of reasons. Like, 1, it could break. 2, you could lose it. And if the actor can't find their prop, that's gonna be bad.
Like, I had a little hand fan that I used, and it was very fragile. It wasn't like a fabric one. It was like this little, like, wood, but like a balsam wood. So it was very fragile, very easy to break, and it was held together by these strings that would get tangled very easily. So I had to take really good care of these fans. And I went through 3 of them, because 2 of them got lost. I would put it on the table, like, demarked with Liz's fan, and all of a sudden, I'd come back to rehearsal, like, a day or 2 later, it'd be gone. Like, excuse me, where's my fucking fan? And I watched this kid one time try and use my fan, break it, and then hide it. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna get into a fist fight backstage. There's gonna be screaming, and it's not gonna be a special effect.
Part of me wonders if McGuire, if the director, like, just saw this going down and was like, just, like, done. Just done.
Oh, she knew. That's why he almost got kicked out of the show, is because she knew.
Yeah, I don't know.
But by the point where he had moved the set piece and everything, like, we were so far into rehearsals, and we were set to do performances. Like, the middle school matinee was where that set thing happened. And the next day was our opening day, or, our opening show. Like, at that point, you can't just remove him from the cast.
Yeah.
Because we had had everything printed out, we had things taken care of, and...
I was working at the library at the time. I can confirm I watched all those programs get printed, and honestly, I would have sat during my library period and just whited out everything, rewritten it. I would have done it. If the
I would have paid you to do it.
if the director or the librarian or like literally anyone had said, "Hey, we don't like this guy in the cast anymore. We want to kick him out, but we already printed him in the programs," I would have taken my little whiteout tape and been like, "This is what I was born to do," and I would have done it. I would have done it.
Okay, and so, like, on this guy, his behavior was so bad that he almost wasn't allowed into theater for the next year. Like, there was this joke between going into theater 3, like, and theater 4, that you had to audition for theater 4. And it was always just the joke that the seniors would pull on the juniors the next year, being like, oh, you gotta audition. Like, they genuinely thought about changing the theater 4 class to be audition only, just because of this guy.
You know, you gotta be a real treat to like change like the way an entire system is run. And that actually, I've seen that happen again because I'm on the college improv team, and it used to be a rule that, well, not improv, yeah, improv team. It used to be a rule that you didn't have to audition if you'd already been on the team the year before. There was a girl on the team who was so bad at improv that we actually like kicked her out after auditions. Like, we didn't even like not the entire team had to re-audition. We made her re-audition, and then we kicked her off. And just
this guy,
bad. So I've seen that go down before.
He almost changed the structure of how something has functioned for 20 years just based on his behavior alone. Like, the thing is at the end of the year, our theater 4 teacher would sit us down, who was our director, and basically say, I want you to write letters to the theater 4 class for next year. Because theater 4 is much, much different from theater 3. Just in, like, structure and how you interact with everybody in the class, it's very different. So she's like, I want you to give these people advice, especially because you're seniors. It's like, oh, your seniors are leaving. Do you have any advice for any of the seniors this year? Like, what they need to do? Like, any problems they need to, like, watch out for? Just in general, give advice. And then we talked about, like, with our theater 4 teacher, based on our interactions with the theater 3 people from the previous year, how we think this next upcoming theater 4 class might be like. And pretty much everybody in that class raised a really valid concern of, this guy has caused a lot of problems in shows and stuff, and we don't know how he's going to be in theater 4. We don't think that he should be allowed into theater 4 based on his behavior, because we don't think he's done anything to prove that he is not worthy, but you know what I mean? Like, he hasn't done anything to justify his admittance into the theater 4 class.
Right.
And so the whole thing was, we don't want to change something just to exclude one person. We don't want to say to one person, hey, you're not allowed in this class. Because that's very clearly going to cause issues with, like, the district and everything, and, you know, parents get involved, and people can lose jobs over that. So he had to sign a contract before he joined Theater 4 that said that if he engages in any sort of predatory behavior in any way, makes anybody feel uncomfortable, does any of, like, the drawing Nazi symbols on stuff, like, he would be immediately removed from Theater 4 and not allowed back in the class. So his behavior both tainted that show for me beyond what I was already having issues with. It was a Western. Like, that's my whole, like, why? But, like, his involvement in the show made it really hard for me to, like, look back on a lot of it very fondly.
I honestly think, and I say this, like, considering everything, considering that I was bitter over the Helena thing, considering that there were some other roles where I'm like, that's not a very strong actor to play that role. Considering that, like we've mentioned over and over, it was a Western and super weird. I think that show would have been infinitely better had someone else been cast in that role. And I'm not gonna lie, because I think you could like almost tell while you were watching the show from an audience's viewpoint that a lot of that cast was not super thrilled to be there. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of it was just because there were just some really icky parts of the rehearsal process, and it sounded like a lot of it was caused by this one individual. So
I'm being totally honest. There were people involved in that show that I loved to death. And there are people in that show who I know were like really good pair-ups together. Like Caitlin and the guy who played the Duke.
yeah.
Those are like two of my best friends. I love them. I was perfectly fine being put in a group with them. And then add on the other guy who was in our group, who he's a nice guy. I really enjoyed being around him. The four of us together, like, for as much as we weren't in the show, we had fun together when we weren't in it.
Yeah.
Like, we worked well together in a group. The guy who played Oberon and the girl who played Titania were really good.
They were
really
so good.
Actors. And they had a really good time together, and they worked well with each other. And the guy who played Puck was just such a good actor in general. He worked well with everybody.
Yeah.
Like, the people who did the play within a play, like, they all worked really well together. It was just the one guy who just, like, drove it in with everybody. That we all just were so not happy to be there to deal with him. And then also addition, like, it was a fucking Western. Like,
yeah.
That you weren't going to recover from that fact to begin with, but add in this guy who was a creep, who made people feel unsafe and made people feel uncomfortable, and I think it showed. Like, nobody liked him. Like, it was so... When I stabbed him at the end of the show, because his whole thing was he was playing Pyramus, and he was trying to figure out how to stab himself with a sword. He basically was like, oh, I have this bright idea, goes over, hands me the sword, and then does, like, a running charge at it, and I stab him.
Nice.
I had such a hard time not suggesting, like, at one night, I just wanted one night to be able to do this, for me to get up and just, like, whack him with a sword and stab him myself. I feel like that would have been very funny.
I would have.
I feel like, just based on how my character was, that would have been funny. But I think at that point, based on how I had already interacted with him in the show, doing that would have seemed very suspicious.
Yeah. It's fine. You already got you got a bit of revenge on him, so sure, it wasn't stabbing him, but you got to, like, channel the anger of, like, 20 cast members. And
it was the highlight of my life. But I don't know. I have a lot of conflicted feelings on this show, because on the one hand, it was a Western, and everyone was confused as to why it was a Western. But everybody who was in that show, like, we had this, like, combined confusion that we were all just like, what? Why? And so I think we all got along and bonded about that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you could tell that, like, somebody was just, like, really, really thrilled to be there and, like, so overly excited and, like, so much. But, like, everybody was just, like, mutually just confused as to why it was a Western. And so I think that brought our cast together, but, like, the whole shit with dealing with this one individual was so irritating to everybody that nobody really wanted to, like, go to rehearsals to deal with him.
Yeah.
Nobody really wanted to be there. Nobody really was, like, thrilled about the show to begin with. Like, so, but I can't say that I didn't have a good time doing it. You know what I mean?
And that's, like, the beautiful part of theater. Like, even if you don't really like a show, if you can get along well with a majority of the people and, like, bond over something, it's still an enjoyable experience. Like, I'm trying to think of there's been been shows that I've really loved being in that I just did not bond with the cast at all. So I don't look on it very fondly. Like, I was in a production of Naomi in the Living Room, which I loved that show. It was a great play. It was hilarious. I was like the main character aside from Naomi, and I really enjoyed being part of it, but I did not really bond with the cast. Like, we didn't have like inside jokes. We kind of just showed up, rehearsed the show, and left. So it was kind of, I don't really look back on that like fondly. I kind of just like, yeah, that's a show I was in, you know?
Because I had Caitlin and my other really good friend and then this other guy who I got along with really well, I had a good time in the show. I had a good time backstage. For as long as I was backstage, it was just kind of like, we just kind of messed around, like rolled on little roller chairs all over the drama room, like played with the dog, and like just did so much shit that, like, I can't say that I hated the show. I can't even say that I like really disliked the show. The concept, maybe. But the execution, a little bit. But overall, I still had a good time, like all things considered. And I still like look fondly at like moments of it. But
I think that's important. Also, I totally forgot that there was an actual dog in that show.
Oh yeah, there was an actual dog in that show.
It was an X5.
I tried to convince our director to let me use my dog in that show. My giant
golden retriever.
120-pound golden retriever. I think that would have been a great idea. Although the other problem would have been that my dog is so afraid of just like everything that might not have been a great idea. Because he probably would have been very afraid to be on stage. But I thought it would have been really funny. Just like, this is my dog. My very large dog. Like obnoxiously huge. On stage. It would have been such an inconvenience, but it
would have been great.
That idea didn't go through necessarily, but it would have been really funny regardless.
It was very fun when, because that was also an Act 5. That was during the play within a play as well. Tiny little dog just pops up, and I'm like, oh my! There is a little dog on stage. So that was enjoyable.
It was fun, and the play within a play was really good. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, it was good. Like, I would have taken that as like a competition piece.
Oh yeah, it was really good. And yeah.
I just enjoyed how it was in general, like just Act 5. Act 5 I have a lot of really good memories of, and it was entertaining, and that was like a really fun part of the show to be in.
Yeah.
But like I won't lie, there are like inside jokes that I have with like there's this one line in the show that I had where basically my character just says, "It is my lord." But at one point I dabbed while like making fun of the line while we were off stage, and Caitlin basically dared me to do it while we were on stage in rehearsals, and I did, and then I got in trouble for it. But I will fully admit, it was 100% worth it. Dabbing, and I got in trouble for dabbing before I got totally off stage at one point. Not during a show, but like during a rehearsal. The director sat us down and was like, if you guys aren't totally off stage, you have to stay in character. I'm like, I know enough about theater to not dab while I'm going off stage in an actual production, okay? Let me have my moment, because I could hear my friend up in the tech booth, like, fucking just, like, laughing her ass off. She was like, I watched you go off stage behind the saloon doors, dab between where the saloon entrance was and where the curtains were, and she was like, I fucking lost my shit. I could not stop laughing. And I was like, thank you! I'm not actually gonna do that in a real show, but, you know, thank you.
Yeah. And really, like I've said, it's really just too bad that show, because that Midsummer is such a fun show, and it has so much potential, and it was diverted the wrong way. I made a joke a few months ago, right before the pandemic, like literally the day before everything fell apart. Me and my boyfriend went to see his brother in a community ballet production of A Midsummer Night's Dream. And I actually sat there, and during the intermission, I leaned over to my boyfriend and I said, not gonna lie, right now, this production of Midsummer Night's Dream that is 50% tiny children is currently better than the Western production that my high school did when I was a senior. And he was like, you should tell my brother that. He'll be very flattered. He was very flattered. So, it just...
I honestly think had we done the steampunk version of Midsummer, it still would have been better.
It would have been better. And we already had a ton of steampunk stuff.
It would have been fun. It would have been fine. But, I mean, I don't know. I have this, thing with Shakespeare. Even in competitions, which I feel like is a whole other topic we could get into.
We will get into competitions eventually, because I attend the university where they do high school Shakespeare competition. And let me tell ya, I have seen some stuff even after I graduated high school. So
we have all seen some stuff. But,
we will get into it.
In class and stuff, we would have to do Shakespeare monologues, and for me, it was never about the language or understanding the meaning behind the language. It was I would always just fuck around with okay, I at one point thought it would have been funny to interpret a character a certain way that my theater director, the same one who directed a Western version of Midsummer, I just interpreted this just for this monologue to be gay, just for the monologue. And she was like, Beatrice is in love with Benedict. And I was like, Midsummer's not supposed to be a Western. You want to fight me on this? I was like, if you can have Midsummer be a Western, let Beatrice be gay. Let it happen. I was, and I'm still bitter about that monologue to this day, because I'm like, if you can interpret Midsummer as a Western, why can't I do this? Why can't I have my moment? Huh?
Yeah. It was just a train wreck. It was a really weird train wreck.
It was a train wreck followed by a train wreck followed by a train wreck.
And the audience...
it was just so many continual train wrecks.
The audience just sat there watching, train wreck after train wreck until finally we got to the train wreck that was supposed to be a train wreck at the very end, and genuinely enjoyed ourselves.
And the only part of that show that I still enjoy.
Yeah.
To this day.
But, yeah.
Well, I mean, in conclusion, I have no idea why it was a Western. I have no idea why this guy was still let to be in the show. I have no idea why I wanted to participate in that show. I have no idea why I stayed in the show.
I have no idea why I wanted to participate in that show, and I have no idea why I was not cast as Helena, and I have no idea why it was a Western.
Can that just be the whole theme of this episode is, why was it a Western?
Why was it a Western?
Why? Why was it a Western? I know I'm my microphone's really close to my face right now, and I'm basically eating it at this point, but why was it a Western?
In conclusion, we have no idea why it was a Western.
Join us next week when we still have no clue why I participated in Shakespeare competitions, or why I participated in any competitions, or
Why
did anything in theater.
Why'd we do theater? We don't know. But you know what? We had fun with it. So, like, it's fine.
I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Anyways, join us next time. Be sure to check out our previous 2 episodes, and
if you don't, I'm gonna come after you, Ethan.
join us next week when we also apparently call out specific people, even though we try super hard to name names.
It doesn't always work.
It does not always work. Anyways, thank you for joining us, and we won't see you. We will talk to you.
Be with you.
We will be with you.
Be with you.
We will be with you again in the future. Thank you, and enjoy our funky exit music.